Y aquí mi abuelito me lo preparaba mi columpio, ahí se estar jugando cuando era niña.
Natividad Velasco grew up in the village of Sorata, Bolivia, near the city of La Paz. As an indigenous woman, finding decent work here was difficult. She worked with her hands, sewing, but didn't earn much. Then she heard about an opportunity more and more indigenous women in Bolivia are taking. Bolivia, and especially the city of La Paz, is undergoing a building boom. And with an increased demand for labor, many of the workers new to the construction industry are women, especially indigenous women like Natividad. They arrive in La Paz with a desire to work, but often with limited knowledge of their rights and often face discrimination. Elbia is 16 years old and only finished the 6th grade in her home village of Coban, Guatemala. Every day at 5:30 a.m., she starts work at her employer's home, cooking, doing the laundry, and cleaning up. She also cares for her employer's young son.
No, I don't know about my rights. What I want to do is go back to school. I think learning about my rights would lead me to make better decisions.
In Guatemala, as many as 1 out of 3 domestic workers are indigenous, most of them young women. Few have made it past 9th grade in school. They have limited awareness of their rights and are vulnerable to abuse and exploitation. Porfiria Modecho has been a domestic worker since she was 10 years old. She knows she has some rights, but
it depends on the employer. I have heard of some of the rights and benefits that we might have, but it's very hard to get them. We always suffer, because if you don't do the things right, you get into trouble.
In Guatemala and Bolivia, an ILO project funded by the Swedish International Development Cooperation Agency works with stakeholders in an integrated approach to educate indigenous women on their rights, enhance their skills, improve on-the-job safety, all towards helping ensure decent work. While the focus is on construction workers in Bolivia, in Guatemala, the project aims to improve the lives of domestic workers.
Domestic workers are the most exposed sector to abuse and to infringement of their rights. That's because domestic work is not recognized by the legal framework and regulations. Domestic work is invisible because of several factors. In Guatemala, there is a long history of discrimination against certain groups of people.
Joining a union is challenging for indigenous domestic workers. The ILO works with Guatemala's Domestic Workers Union to strengthen its outreach, and the union actively supports the ratification of ILO Convention 189 on domestic work.
If Convention 189 was approved, it would be very beneficial for indigenous women because it would establish that they receive a minimum wage, work 8 hours a day, and get social protection, and it would ensure they're well treated.
Claudia Chotut is a community activist working with indigenous women in Alta Verapaz.
It is vitally important to organize women, to help them gain knowledge about their rights, to empower us, and to get even more women involved to find out about their rights.
In Guatemala, the ILO has been working to strengthen national institutions to ensure better working conditions and wages for domestic workers, especially enhancing access to decent work for indigenous women. The Domestic Workers Association is a key partner, actively seeking changes in legislation to enhance the rights of working women in Guatemala.
We are seeking changes and reforms in the legislative process and the enforcement of labor rights for women. We accompany women to court, and we support other organizations which are bringing cases of violence against women to the justice system.
Guatemala's Confederation of Trade Union Unity is another key partner.
As a women, we have many challenges. We have been excluded many times. But we have been trained by the ILO to break the silence. Now we have a voice, and I think it is very important for women.
Giving Guatemala's indigenous population a voice is an essential part of the process.
The indigenous population in Guatemala, and especially women, are the ones that have even more complex situations because of infringement of their rights. We want to be looking for the proposals that this population could generate so that they can implement their rights.
In Bolivia, the ILO works with associations, local government, and employers to increase awareness of rights for Indigenous women, and also to support training in occupational safety on the construction site.
Safety is very important at work. There used to be a lot of accidents. Now that we have had the safety courses, we know what safety is and we take care of each other.
Challenges remain. There is discrimination. Few women construction workers earn what men performing the same work do. It's often worse for Indigenous women, especially those who migrate for work.
For migrant women who are also Indigenous, with all that carries, getting into such a hard world, in a way, is to cross into and live a life that goes against stereotypes, and that can be a pretty hard fight.
Perceptions are beginning to change. There is an association specifically for women who work in Bolivia's construction sector.
10 years ago, you could rarely see a woman in a construction work, maybe one or two. Now, there are more.
The association has energized local government and employers to help ensure Indigenous women have a voice in policies that affect them.
We are happy to see that more women are involved in these associations, and it is evolving in a good way. Their voice is being listened to and included in different policies, programs and projects, both at a national level and especially at the local level.
I think that representation in a union or federation makes women feel more protected, because when they're represented, they can negotiate with the employer and manage their work hours, wages, and their rights.
The ILO also provides business and entrepreneurship skills training for Indigenous women. A new virtual platform database of women construction workers in Bolivia who have been trained and certified by training centers helps them enter the job market.
The ILO has continually advised, recommended and given us suggestions, and has always looked after the safety of the construction workers. We are now considering a plan for our female construction partners to have the same rights that men do across the country.
Why do women get in this labour market? Because incomes are better than in other sectors in Bolivia. We are on that path. We hope to achieve this in the short term, and there is willpower among all the actors involved, so I think we're moving in the right direction.
Indigenous women everywhere face similar challenges. Access to decent work and overcoming discrimination is key to ensuring they are not left behind in the 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda. The ILO's work in Bolivia and Guatemala shows building the capacity of institutions to guarantee the rights of Indigenous women and making women more aware of their rights makes a difference.
I want to tell my colleagues who are women and who have suffered like me, when they still feel discrimination, I want them to keep pushing ahead and not give up. They have to push ahead. They have to be a rock that cannot be crushed.